The interesting thing about this, we've also got the tungsten. So we discovered that tungsten
magically popped up, did it?
To the gold. Yeah, about 12 months ago, just came out of the ground at us and, turned on the fluorescent light and there it was, staring at us in the dark.
This is general advice and my opinions only. This episode's company has paid me for this interview. I may be long, short, or hold an interest in stocks or CFDs mentioned. Past performance isn't reliable. The interviewee's views are their own, not necessarily mine. LEVRD operates as a corporate authorised representative 00131 8377 under AFSL 548573. You can find our financial services guide via the LEVRD website, link in the show notes.
Stop loss owners. I'll tell you what, when you get two ex-underground miners involved, you don't mess around. We get shit sorted quick. Peter Harold, Rumble Resources, welcome to LEVRD, mate, on the back of your announcement today with your toll milling agreement. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. Very excited.
Very good, mate. Mate, Aussie, mate, your share price is one of the ones that's actually gone up since the war, so you've actually been going all right. So for those who don't know, Rumble, what are we at? 75 mil market cap, sitting at 5.7 cents, and your deposit it looked like a logical one to go into Dalgaranga because you're right nice and close to it, but you've just signed a toll milling agreement with Kirkalocka, announced today. Take us through it, mate. What is going on?
Yeah, well, you probably know we've had this asset for a number of years, and in fact, at one stage it was our sort of like premier asset until we discovered LEVRD, which was the big zinc project out near Walloon, and we got focused on that for a couple of years, put out a big resource, but then the zinc price sort of fell away, and even though it's the fourth most consumed metal in the world, no one really cares about it at the moment, but it'll have its day again. So we sort of rolled back and had a look at what else we had in the portfolio, and up came Western Queen. And over the last couple of years, we've upgraded the resource a couple of times. We took it from 180,000 ounces to 280 and then 370, and the grade went from 2 grams to 3 grams. And it looked more and more initially like we're going to do an open pit. Then we said, hang on a second, let's have a look at this as an underground. So we grabbed a couple of the old panoramic crew that had been with me at Lanfranchi and also at Savannah, and Bales and Chris Williams, and we had a good look at this, and it just says, yeah, this is crying out to be an underground mine. Pump the water out of Western Queen South, put a decline in at the bottom of the pit, and within 6 months you're into the ore and away you go. So then it was like, well, okay, put the scoping study out sort of November of last year, initially a 2-year project, probably a 5 to 6 year project. And okay, where's the nearest mills in the area? Well, we spoke to Ramelius, and as you said, Dalgaranga and Checkers, spoke to Westgold with Tuckbiana up the road. But there was a relationship that I had going back a long way with a guy called Mike Tilley, who has been working with the guys at Kirkolocka, which is obviously Varde or Gildan. And next minute, we were able to sort of move forward with a conversation. We signed an MOU some months ago, and we've just consummated a deal signed yesterday or early this morning with these guys to put, the material through the mill there at Kirkolocka sort of from mid next year onwards, which is fantastic.
Yeah, right. So take us through I got it up on the screen here. Yeah. Anything funky with the terms? Are they taking all the feed? Is it
yes.
toll trading purchase? Yeah. How's it work?
Yeah, so it's all toll trading, and look, it's pretty vanilla. And I did one of these when we had Lanfranchi, obviously with what was Western Mining in the day. So I'm quite familiar with toll treating arrangements, although that was for nickel, this is for gold, but the things are the same effectively in terms of the mechanics and how you get paid. So with this one, there's no profit share. So some of the deals that you've seen recently around people giving away a percentage of the gold, this is 100% of the gold that's in our ore comes back to us after recovery, obviously, and we get about a 95% recovery. So that's quite a considerable amount of gold coming back. At this stage, we're campaign treating on batches of 75,000 tonnes. So we're assuming about a production rate from underground of about 300,000 tonne a year, as I said, from mid next year. So we'll probably do 4 campaigns a year, and they're going to blend some of their material with ours, because they really wanted to run through at sort of 150,000 tonnes as one parcel. And, that obviously would mean we'd have to stockpile for 6 months. So that wouldn't be optimal for us. So that's why we've agreed to this blending. So 50-50 their ore, our ore. We get 100% of the gold that's our share, and it's done 4 times a year, basically. And we're paying a tolling fee and a small blending fee for the benefit of doing that. It's about 180K, so we obviously pay the transport to get it down there. But in this day and age, that's probably considered to be close by. there's ore going a lot further than that these days.
Yeah, definitely. Because what sort of head grade are you going to be mining out of the underground?
About 3 grams it should be. That was based on the scoping, so 2.95 or something like that.
That's bloody high grade these days, mate.
They're very, very high grade. I remember, I remember working at Stall, 35 years ago, and that was, 5 grams, and that was super high grade. So yeah, today 3 grams is very high grade. But the interesting thing about this, we've also got the tungsten. So we discovered that tungsten
magically popped up, did it?
To the gold, yeah, about 12 months ago, just came out of the ground at us, and turned on the fluorescent light, and there it was, staring at us in the dark. So, look, hats off to the geos at the team here at Rumble for identifying that, and then cleverly they went back and got all the old core, and we've reassayed for tungsten, and we've popped out already in the space of just under 12 months basically a 4.5 million tonne at 0.3 with a high grade zone of about 1.5 million tonnes at 0.5, which 0.5 for WO3 is very high grade, and that sits in and around the gold. So in fact, we'll be able to mine the tungsten at the same time as we mine the gold. So in the agreement, and we've alluded to in the announcement, there's also the ability for us to negotiate with them for them potentially to build the tungsten circuit down at Kirkalocka. So that way we can use the front end of their plant, crushing and grinding, and then we can take off a gold tungsten stream and put it through a concentrator, and then a gravity circuit, and then basically just a thickener and a filter, and bag it off in 2-ton bulker bags, and hey presto, we can 48% WO3 concentrate. And that could add significant revenue stream, rather than a byproduct. It could actually be a co-product. It could be worth potentially as much as the gold, depending on the volumes we produce and the tungsten price as well. So really exciting, and that would probably come, say, 12 months. So if we're sort of talking about mid next year for first ore to the surface, or sometime in the second quarter, potentially we'd be talking about 12 months later for the tungsten. So really exciting, and I just don't think the market's understood, first of all, how soon the gold gets produced and how soon after the tungsten can come out of the ground. Yeah,
so looking at your long section here, mate, where is, when you said the tungsten's sort of in and around the gold,
yes,
where is it, and can it be mined sort of independently and stockpiled compared to your gold?
Yeah, the answer is, and it's basically in and around. So on that long section there, you basically got it sort of anywhere between sort of right next to the gold up to about 20 metres away in various different chutes. So some of the gold and the tungsten is together. And so obviously that material would have to be mined and probably really stockpiled and waited for that processing plant to be ready. But initially the work that we're doing that we did with Bales and now with AMC and Chris is around how can we mine just the high grade gold material first. And if we do run into any tungsten, we'll just stockpile that or just leave it underground. And then the idea would be we'd probably come back and we'd probably have to build a paste plant. And then obviously we can extract 100% of the gold and the tungsten. So we had a paste plant at Savannah, we had one at Lanfranchi. So, paste is sort of second nature to us. We could bring tailings back from Kirkalocka for free, back all on the trucks. So it all works very nicely. And so, we'll put out a cross section, which probably in the next announcement, it just gives you a better idea of how the tungsten and the gold sit together. So there's definitely some gold that's on its own, some tungsten that's on its own, and there's some gold and tungsten that's together. Yep. So we'll just have to manage that mining campaign initially, Matt. But once we get going, and assuming we build that concentrator or the gravity circuit concentrator down at Kirkolocka, then you just put all that material, if it's got gold and tungsten, through the front end, and obviously then it would separate. The gold goes through the normal circuit into the CIL, and the tungsten rich material goes through the float circuit or the gravity circuit and into the thickener and then bagged off in bulker bags.
So there's obviously, like, if there's hypothetically delays to this tungsten journey, you can still chuck the gold tungsten ore through and recover the gold. Can you do anything? Can you recover the tailings to reprocess later?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, we were talking about that, and that's obviously a discussion we'll have with Gildan and the Kirkalocka crew. As we start to come. So the next thing is to get an updated gold resource out because we've just finished that 7,500 metres of drilling we did, and a lot of that was infill drilling. So we'll update the gold resource. We found a lot more high-grade gold at the bottom of Western Queen Central, so that's really good for the sort of the longer-term story.
Yeah.
And then obviously the tungsten will get upgraded or updated as well because we've got some more hits in the tungsten at Western Queen South. So put all that together, we'll do we'll convert the November 25 gold scoping study into a feasibility study, and we'll do a scoping study on the tungsten, and that'll all come out, in the next sort of couple of months.
Yeah, right. So looking at this, the underground plan here, you've obviously got is Western Queen South. That's obviously your first mining area.
That's the starter project. That's right.
Yeah,
and that was the easiest one because if you look at that long section you've got there, or that diagram, that initial open pit there that was mined by Ramelius a few years ago, that's got about half a gigalitre of water in it. So we're just waiting to get the the permit to pump that water into Central. That'll take a couple of months to do that. Then we can clean up the bottom of the pit and put the portal in about 20 metres above the bottom, and then you can see what the sort of the design we've got planned for that. And then what we'll do is we'll get the water out of Western Queen Central, and there's quite a bit more water in there. That's about it'll be, by the time we add Western Queen South to it, it'll be about 4 gigalitres. So we'll have to pump that water out and initially either evaporate it or do something else with it. And then that'll take about a year, and then we can start the access to the bottom of Western Queen Central and do the same thing. Instead of running a sort of a straight that we were initially going to do, that sort of 600 metres from south across to Central, because we've found so much high-grade material just below the bottom of that open pit there at Central, we'll definitely want to come down from the pit. So we'll do the same thing as we did with South. So that'll be a slightly modified version of that diagram you've got there.
Oh, okay, so there'll be a portal coming in from...
Yep.
Yeah, righto. Yeah.
Yes.
And so when... I assume you'll have to there'll be another permit to pump that water out to the creek or something.
Well, initially... The plan we initially had was to put it into an evaporation pond.
Oh, okay,
But there's a couple of other ideas that the water guys have come up with. We need to sort of which could be quite an elegant solution, but haven't finalised all that yet. But there's definitely some options there.
Yeah, nice.
So really, it's all full steam ahead. We're just now that we've done the. I don't know if you saw last week we announced that we'd sold a gold royalty.
Oh, I got that right.
Yeah, so we raised.
Mate.
Yeah, there you go. So we raised $2.5 million. I'm jumping the gun on you, mate, but
that's all right. I'm ready. I'm ready for anything, mate. Don't you worry.
Yeah, so that was Elemental Royalties, who actually already owned the existing small royalty. So we converted that into a 2.5% NSR, and they've given us $5 million up front, and we get another $5 million. Well, basically now that we've signed the the tolling agreement, we should get the other 5 in the next 5 days. So that'll be good.
Yeah, nice.
So we're cashed up, and that gets us down into the ore.
Yep.
And then we'll need a working capital facility for basically stockpiling that first 75,000 tonnes of material before it goes through the plant at Kirkalocka. So we're talking to a number of different financial institutions and banks about that. And of course, they're all keen. They're just waiting for the feasibility study to come out.
Yeah, right. So how much is that 10 million? What's that give you in the bank at the moment?
Oh, well, we had $3 million at the end of January or the end of December, end of March, and then we'd obviously chewed it up. So we'll probably have, when we get the other 5 in, we'll have 11 or 12.
Yeah, nice. So if we're looking at critical path I assume is the pumping permit, and then it looks like the portal's thankfully pretty close to the ore,
correct,
which is handy. So there's not heaps of capital to put in. So that permit's the critical thing at the moment to pump the water out to start the portal. Is that the main one?
There's four approvals we need. We've got native veg clearance, we've got works approval. We need the groundwater license, which is the one that allows us to pump the water, and we need the mine plan and mining development and closure proposal to be approved too. So they're the two that we're waiting for, and we're hoping that that's in the next 4 weeks. And then it's about a month to set up for the pumping, and then a couple of months to do the pump out, and then obviously there'll be a lot of crap at the bottom of the pit, and we'll have to clean all that. We've allowed a couple of months for that, and then obviously the underground mining contractor will start. and about 6 months down into the ore. And the money that we've set aside basically from that royalty effectively gets us down there. I mean, we've sort of said pre-development capital sort of circa $10 million. So that's we're kind of funded to that. And then obviously we'll need a working capital facility for the stockpile. Yeah.
Yeah. So is the underground, is the contract being tendered or anything yet, or are you waiting for approvals?
No, we haven't tendered it yet. We were really waiting for that updated resource because that'll feed into an updated mine schedule, and then obviously we'll also probably then have, rather than just the 2 years of Western Queen South, hopefully we'll also have more of the inferred over at Western Queen Central converted into indicated, so we can put that into the reserve as well. So, and then we'll have that mine plan or the design coming down off the bottom of the Western Queen Central pit rather than going across. So that's a bit of a change, and we'll give that to the groups that have already given us an expression of interest. We've had 3 expressions of interest already from sort of some mid-tier underground mining groups, and we'll obviously go out to tender on the basis of that updated schedule.
Yeah, interesting. So look, the mine looking at it, it looks pretty simple, narrow vein retreat mining. From memory, a bit of it's in Ultramafic. But Ultramafics, there's different Ultramafics. I tell you what, if you want someone mining Ultramafic, it's someone that's been a nickel MD,
that's exactly right.
like yourself. So you're probably the perfect Ultramafic miner.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about the Ultramafic, what you've seen so far, and what you might come up against?
Yeah, look, I think we're not very concerned, and as you pointed out, I mean, you can manage Ultramafics. If you've mined underground at Lanfranchi, you can mine Ultramafic, right? The issue that they had going back, and the last people to mine, as I said before, was Ramelius, and they mined that small Western Queen South pit. They did have some issues with the Ultramafic in the wall of the pit, and they did have some slumping. It was also partially because of water. There's a lot of water.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit of a combination. And when that was one of the reasons why we moved initially from doing an open pit to underground, because when we did the geotech on it with the water and the Ultramafic, we were going to have to push it back from a 15-to-1 to a 40-to-1 strip ratio.
Yeah.
So that kind of blew that up, and that's when we had a really good look at the underground, and obviously the gold price took off as well. But the Ultramafic is not going to be an issue for us. We've done quite a bit of geotechnical drilling, and it's not anywhere near as Ultramafic as Lanfranchi was. And it's all about just making sure the geotechs have got a handle on it. You've got enough drilling, and you just plan for it. So it has its mined in it before. It has its pros and cons. But in terms of it's one of those things that's. You're not going to be dealing with seismicity. You're very shallow, but Ultramafic, it's like one of those things where once you mesh it, it stays there. Like it's exactly
it's contained.
Right.
And tell you what, it's easy to pull a cut in it. You just run the holes up and it just falls out. You won't have any issues with development advance. But once it's contained, and as long as the dilution's controlled, it is manageable.
And as you know, you can move the decline around, and if you run into a bit of material that's you're not comfortable with, you can mesh to the floor and do it, which we used to do. So it's all very manageable. I think it's all about knowing what you're coming into, really.
Is it just in the ore, or is it scattered through the mine, or what is it?
Oh no, look, I mean, I'm not a geo, but as I said, my understanding was it was more prevalent in that sort of transition zone material than it is as we go deeper. But let's wait and see what the updated resource looks like. But as I said, it's not a concern for me at all based on my previous experience. And as you said, we're only down starting off. We're only talking about another sort of 200 to 300 meters below surface, so it's not deep, not like we were at Lanfranchi or Savannah. Very, very different. Yeah, very different. Gold Ultramafic's better than nickel Ultramafic. That's always I would think so. Yeah. Especially that stuff around Kambala, that was pretty crappy.
Oh yeah, gosh. So timeline-wise, are we looking potentially? How are we looking by the end of the year? Like, is it pushing it a bit, possibly starting next year for all?
We were really hoping when we first sort of looked at this project, when it was back as an open pit, that we'd be sort of end of 26. But by now, things have changed a bit, and we took a bit longer to get some of the studies done and so on. So no, it's really, first or second quarter of next year, is very doable. Yeah. If we get, I mean, it's all driven now by the permitting for the water. once we get that, then we can get the guys on site, get all the pumps set up, get that 600-metre pipeline into the other pit, start pumping. It's about, I think, 2 to 2.5 months of pumping. Then we've allowed 2 months to clean up the bottom of the pit. That might be conservative. We might be able to do it quicker than that. And then we've allowed 6 months from the time we cut the portal to first ore. So so it's really effectively, 12 months from today. So what's that? It's May of next year is when we should be starting to see dirt on the ROM pad.
Yeah, interesting. And you look at, is there? I know you're close to Dalgaranga. Once you get underground, what sort of are you going to be punching some holes out into the wilderness to try and see what's there?
Absolutely. Well, historically, when with again going back to the nickel days, I mean, we found the Savannah deeps from underground drilling. We found Deacon, which was the company maker for Panoramic at Lanfranchi, was underground. Hixie drilled that, punching some holes out off the decline. Absolutely. I mean, the first thing we've talked about is when we get down to the first turn, they want to put a drill cuddy in there. So, they're as keen as mustard, the guys. I mean, done a great job, but, we're sort of, the exploration team is basically not doing anything at Western Queen at the moment because we're doing some work on some of our other projects, but they want to get back there as soon as they can. And the ideal position to drill, to test, the deeper down and to test potentially whether we've got one of those never analogies is from a dedicated drill cuddy down there off the decline.
Yeah, interesting. Mate, I was just looking at your register. Tribeca's still sitting at about 11%. When did they get
have
in?
Actually gone up a bit higher. Well, they were very shrewd. They bought in at the last placement at 2.5 cents. So they've already nearly tripled their money. So they're looking good. And they've actually bought a bit more on market over time. And then, they've been very supportive. We actually were in Brisbane last week and caught up with the guys. So, and they're obviously pleased to see that both the royalty deal and also the announcement today. Sent us a nice email this morning. So, they've been very supportive, and we've got a couple of other big supporters up in Queensland as well who came in in the last raise, and then some other institutions on the East Coast, and still a lot of high net worths and mums and dads, which is great too.
Yeah, because look, you probably, and there's that many frickin' companies out there at the moment. Like you would have went to RIU, I assume, and you're trying to stand out from that many other bloody companies. What's everyone? I guess what's going to be the catalyst for you? Is I assume Western Queen is the primary focus now, and it's going to be trying to get a study out with. It's getting a high number of ounces per annum to stand out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I think if you look at 30,000 ounces a year for 2 years, which was the scoping study, is kind of ho-hum, right? But if you could do that for 5 or 6 years based on, Western Queen, South and Central, then it's looking a bit more serious. And then if you add the tungsten to that from, 2028, and you look at the tungsten price now and what potentially we could produce, you're sort of talking about, in gold equivalent, some pretty serious numbers. And so you start to get up there and you're on the radar screen of, and you look at some of the companies that have been incredibly successful in doing what we're talking about doing. And just recently, some of the startup ones is obviously New Merchants and done a fantastic job. And then obviously Mika as well. And, we're sort of, we're coming in behind those guys, and we're not dissimilar in terms of potentially, if you add the tungsten in terms of a gold equivalent. So I think, that's where we could head to. And those companies have been up with market caps in $500 to $750 million, and so here are we at sort of 70. So you can see there's an awful lot of fresh air to fill between 5 cents and what the current valuation that MST have got, which is very conservative in my view, as I would always say, is 27 cents. They put that out a couple of weeks ago. So between 6 and 27, there's a lot of fresh air, and we've got to hit all of those. Get pumping, get the mining going, start developing, get into gold production, first cash flows. That you can see that the valuation gap between our share price and should start to narrow. So that there's a bit of work to do, but that's what we've done before. I mean, this will be my 5th one of these, Matt. So you kind of think, well, you kind of know what the plan is, and obviously can't predict the commodity prices, but gold does look good. And the other thing is we've still got RTR sitting out there with over 2 million tons of zinc, nearly 1 million tons of lead, and 12 million ounces of silver. And when they discovered that, 4 years ago, the market cap went to $500 million. So, and the zinc price was $2, and then it went down to sort of $1.20, and no one was interested. Well, zinc's back at $1.60, and we're definitely getting some people having a look at that project again, especially with the silver as well. So that's going to be brought along in the background. We're actually doing some work now on producing a separate zinc con and a lead silver zinc con with a high silver component in it. So if that works, and we think it will, that'll change that project dramatically, I reckon, with that silver credit. So yeah, that's a work in progress. And so look, I initially joined the company for the zinc project, and so I still want to see that one develop. But obviously in the meantime, we've got a fabulous little gold tungsten project which could make us a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, so where's RTR? Where's it located?
About 120 k's north of Wiluna.
I see it here.
I'll tell you where it is. It's on well 4 of the Canning Stock Route, if you've ever been on the Canning Stock Route.
Yeah, right. So it'd be bloody close to Jundee, is it?
Yes, correct. And it's only 60 k's from the Goldfields gas pipeline, which is handy.
Yeah, right.
So from a power cost, that's it. Yeah. And so look, there's been a huge amount of work done. We spent about $40 million drilling that out.
Yeah. So
it was a big project, and it's a huge resource. I mean, if you drop the cutoff back to sort of 1, it goes up to 200 million. So it could be a 20 to 30 year mine life.
Yeah, right. So logically, that's would you look to get value for that asset via a spin out or divestment, or is it something you're going to keep in the portfolio, do you think?
Look, at this stage, I would have initially said, 6 months ago, we were setting it up to find a partner, bring someone in to fund the drill out and the feasibility study, and they could earn an interest, and we get free carried through to development, whatever, sort of that what Oz Minerals did with Cassini type of structure. However, with the silver sort of becoming right into the fore, I guess one of the things we're looking at is, could we sell a silver royalty? That royalty market's very hot at the moment, and we've, a lot of people we've spoken to said, you'd probably be able to sell a silver royalty, so we could do that to fund the drill out and the feasibility study ourselves. Why not?
What don't you ask good old Elemental Royalty if they want to?
Yes, well, they will certainly be asked the question, and we've already talked to them about that, and there's lots of others, as you know, but look, they've been good to deal with, and we've got to know those guys pretty well over the last sort of 6 months. And the thing I liked about that was they actually did a lot of very, very detailed due diligence on Western Queen. And if you look at it, they've effectively given us $10 million, which would mean that at today's gold price, we'd have to produce, all that 60,000 ounces out of Western Queen just for them to get their money back. So they've obviously backed us in for a much longer project.
Yeah, interesting. So last question from me, mate.
Yes.
You're pretty confident on executing the working cap facility and not doing another raise?
Yes. Well, look, I mean, you never say never, man. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But look, based on, we've got the $10 million from the royalty, or we've got 5 and 5's due in now that we've signed the tolling arrangement. And we're looking for a working capital facility. We've got lots of interest, and we've had, quite a number of term sheets have been given to us. And really, with that, the devil's going to be in the detail. They'll want to get in and have a look at obviously the resource. We'll obviously narrow it down to a couple before, and then go into more detailed DD with those guys. They always pull it apart. They'll look right into it, and they'll do the resource. They'll obviously do the mining side of it. They'll look at the offtake arrangements. They'll look at the tungsten, and then we're pretty confident that that there's a lot of money out there looking for that high yield return. Yep. And so we're definitely confident that we can get that one done. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but bonds are rising, bloody debt prices are rising, bloody they'll love it. They'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. and it's really because it's only really short term, and you can probably do some type of effectively once the ore is on the surface, and it's in a stockpile, then it's easier to finance it for some people because of those working capital type facilities rather than backing someone who's got to develop an underground mine take 2 years, and there's a lot more risk. So I think, I do think that from a risk perspective, it's a lower risk financing.
Yeah. Okay. So, can they get instead of security over the asset, do they get security over the stockpile?
That's one way of doing it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And it might be initially they take access, and again that'll be in the structure of the deal. But from our perspective, if you could just do it on the stockpile, that'd be the way to do it. So you draw down as your stockpile builds. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, mate. Bloody cheers for the short notice interview, mate. No, but may as well get it done today when the announcement's out. Otherwise, everyone will forget about it.
Strike while the iron's hot. Absolutely.
Good on you, mate. I'll be keenly watching going forward.
Yes.
I'll love another underground mine. Very simple.
Yeah, I bet you do. Well, come and visit when we've got the portal cut. Come and have a look.
I'll get a photo right in front of it, mate. I'll take a selfie. Yeah. Good on you, Pete.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers, mate. Well done.